So originally I wasn't even really thinking about covering this topic, but it does seem to be a huge potential big thing for disc golf and what the future of sponsors will look like. Let's talk about the Chess Invitational in Florida. All right, so on the most recent episode of the Upshot podcast, which I highly recommend you guys check it out, gives you great information. They actually interviewed Paul and do a little checkup to see how he's doing. Obviously he's had some big stuff going on, like 2 courses, new kid, and obviously the lawsuit dismissal. So major things going on in his life, but he actually went into way more detail about the whole Chess.com Invitational and the kind of backstory behind that. And because there was a lot more stuff unveiled with that, there is a good deal of general hope and positivity going on right now. So I wanted to go into that. So according to Paul, this was always going to be the Chess.com Invitational. It was only called Florida Open because people needed a placeholder, but Paul knew, assuming the lawsuit wasn't going to hold him back or anything, it was going to be sponsored by Chess.com. And if you know anything about Chess.com, they are very popular, by far one of the biggest sites and just overall games people are playing. And while it may not be 100% on track with Fortnite, it is actually very comparable when you look at the numbers. So it is definitely a major company that has a lot of potential viewers and eyes on the sport, if you consider chess a sport, which I kind of do. And with that, they make close to 100 million per year in revenue, and they are definitely on track to being a $1 billion company if they aren't already. I couldn't really find any hard stats on that. But with that said, the chess industry is worth about $2 billion, and it's expected to be about $3 billion in a couple years. So this is definitely an emerging sport for so many people, similar to disc golf. So you may be thinking, how the heck did this whole thing come about? Well, according to Paul, the CEO is a huge disc golf fanatic. He actually has every iteration of Lunas, and he has a putting green in his backyard. He has everything you could ever want for a prosumer disc golf setup. And because of this, it was very easy to collab with Paul. He just had to hit him up, be like, hey, I really want to do this thing. I want to be a title sponsor, and the rest was history. And actually, what's even more interesting is that Paul actually denied a couple of requests because Paul's a busy life and he has a lot going on. So Chesscom was actually expected to do even more. But with that said, what we do know is that they are the lead sponsor, and Paul was quoted to say he is not going to take a small amount for a title sponsor. So we don't know what that number is, but presumably the added cash will be very substantial, especially for the first event of the year. I'm so stoked about that. And Paul went on to state that if you are a fan of chess, you will definitely be enjoying a lot of stuff going on there. He didn't really go into specifics, but he did say a lot of influencers in chess will be there. So that makes me wonder, do we get a Gotham? If you are familiar with chess YouTube, he is by far the biggest chess YouTuber out there. Every video he posts gets millions of views, and he is definitely one of the most engaging influencers in the sport. But along with that, there was actually a good deal of testing on the course, because obviously we know the course pretty well. I've seen so many rounds of it, but it was actually play tested by Climo, Calvin, and Charlie Goodpasture, the guy that aced at this course. So I'm very interested to see what changes they recommended. Probably very minimal because the course is pretty phenomenal already. But with all of this said, what does this mean for the future of title sponsors? To me, this is by far the biggest sponsorship we have ever seen in disc golf. I know we've had some pretty big sponsors like LL Bean. Ledgestone wasn't really an official sponsor. I don't really know what you kind of classify that as. But then after that, it would have to be Barbasol, which is definitely a mainstream brand, but there still wasn't too much involvement. I think Chess is definitely on board 100%. They want to do even more for this event. So the fact that they are just clamoring to be more involved in the sport, to me, is a great trend, and they definitely have the backing to really cement disc golf as a mainstream sport. Sure, it may not be a huge 180 flip, but it is definitely moving the sport in that trajectory, which is very exciting. And I look forward to potentially, cross my fingers, getting something like an Under Armour or Nike or some kind of mainstream clothing brand like golf that does that every single weekend. And I think that is truly the essence of how we can get higher payouts, more professional environments in the tour season, because that really would change the fundamental view of what disc golf is in the mainstream perception. But with that said, it is kind of nice to still be small, not super well known, but for the future trajectory of disc golf to be a viable sport for all the players out there, I think this is very much required. So with that said, are you excited about Chess.com being a title sponsor? Do you not really care that much? I would love to know. For me, I am just 10 out of 10 excited. I actually will be out of the country at this point, so I won't be able to go, but it will be very sick to see how it all turns out. And I would love to know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.